I knew I remember this one being funny.
Ooh, that's a hot mug, guy.
Hey guys, this is my review for Supernatural Season 9, Episode 5, Dog Day Afternoon, and this is the one where Dean can talk to dogs. I remember this one being very fun when it came out, and for the last little while I kept on wondering when that episode was coming, and now it finally has, and I'm very happy to say this is actually probably my favorite episode of the season so far. I love how it has a lot of key elements that make Supernatural fun. It has a villainous creature that is pretty scary, it's got some great kills in it, it's got some pretty decent humor, and you have Jensen Ackles 100% committing to the bit of being able to talk to dogs. 100%. And man, never falters whatsoever throughout this episode. And while there might be some kind of unnecessary elements with Sam and Ezekiel in this episode, the rest of this episode is gold. It starts off with this guy getting gnarly killed by this dude who has this Haitian powers and the ability to take on animals, powers and prowess and whatever. Guys, holy shit, that's a brutal fucking kill. He then does the same later on by eating cats and then killing the guy against the wall. This guy, who, by the way, I knew I was remembering him for something, and he was in a show called Crossing Jordan. The only reason why I know that show is because my stepmom watched it. This guy is a pretty cool, sinister villain. He is taking on animals to try and cure his cancer. All the while he's doing that, he's finding new means to take on different abilities with different monsters, and that's really, really cool. Even as much as I didn't like the whole Ezekiel thing, I like how they use that as a means for him to want to eat Sam, because he sees Sam full on heal himself after his throat gets ripped open. And he's like, what are you? I want to eat you and I want to get your powers. As for Dean, this episode is definitely ruled quite a bit by Jensen and the humor he has with not only the main dog, Colonel, but also all the other dogs he comes across, whether it's yelling at the mailman, talking to the birds, kind of checking out other female dogs. I love how great this part felt. It didn't feel silly, even though it totally was. It's kind of just a weird thing to say, but I felt that Andrew Dabb's later seasons would dip way into the silliness and just kind of never come back from where they were, whereas this one is doing a good job with keeping it in a supernatural element but not going too far with the bit, knowing when to hold and when to roll. That is kind of the idea of this whole bit. And there's even some other parts where they make fun of vegans initially, saying that they're douchebags for wearing sunglasses inside, but then they find out that they actually got maced and they feel like douchebags for wearing sunglasses inside. Overall, this episode is really, really good. It's got a great mystery. It's got a great little monster to it. It's got great humor to it. The only negative is everything to do with Ezekiel. Whether it's Dean being even more obvious than before that there's something fishy going on, to when Sam full on heals himself. I don't like what the overall arc with it is. I do like how they used it, though, with the monster. Wow, you just healed a gargantuan hole in your throat. I want to eat you. I like that, and I like his comeuppance, too. I thought everything with that was great. I just didn't like how this is here. It's that annoying friend that just keeps on tapping you on the shoulder, even though you try to tell him to go away. That is what the Ezekiel thing is like, and I am very, very hopeful that this whole secret bullshit ends really quick, because I'm getting so tired of it being so poorly placed into this season. But then after that, the monster ends on a good point. They kill the monster. There's a great little end bit with the Colonel and how Dean loses the ability to talk to him just at the very end, even though you know he could totally just do the spell again because there was no adverse side effects. But overall, that's thinking about it too much. It is definitely one of the best episodes of the season. It has a great monster. It has great scares in it, despite being a funny episode. And it has such a memorable, iconic bit to it, being Dean interacting with everything as a dog. Just so good. So I'm going to be very generous, admittedly, but I feel warranted in it. I'm going to give this episode a 6 out of 7. I really, really liked it. I thought it was really good. But those are my thoughts about this episode. As always, let's see what you guys have to say. Surprisingly, I enjoyed this episode. It reminds me of Dr. Dolittle, the Eddie Murphy movies that I love seeing. Love seeing Dean's interaction with the dogs. I was surprised that one of the dogs was voiced by the late Leslie Jordan. Loved him in Sordid Lives, the series. The villain Leo was really good. I'm glad Sam is starting to finally realize that something isn't right, and it was great to have a villain, how the villain was defeated. Jensen was very, very funny in this episode. Hey, she points it out too about Crossing Jordan. Good for you, Angela. This was a funny episode. I love the part where Dean fights with the pigeon and wants to shoot it, but Sam stops him. Didn't care for the random Zeke moment. That didn't really need to happen. Yes, that is the part that just kind of really really stupidly sucks. Dog Day Afternoon proves Jensen Ackles really understands how to provide comedy for the show. Exactly. I don't think Jared or Misha could have been acting like a dog like how Jensen handles it. Sam discovering more and more something is off is a little forced and doesn't really always work, but it only works because of the chemistry that Sam and Dean have. I would even say, like, the only reason why I feel it works better with the monster, like the whole dialogue between Dean and Sam is so bad at that point. It's amazing how this season can have a Monster of the Week episode where it has a lot of heaven and hell conflicts going on. I love this episode. It's my favorite episode of the season, and it is the funniest episode of the whole series. Oh, in my top funniest episodes of the whole series. Dean acting like a dog is just hilarious, as were Sam reactions to it. Plus, Dean and Colin, the Colonel's banter was spot on. Shame that he couldn't have been the brother's dog, but it probably would have been safer for him that way. That would have been cool to have him come along, but yeah, I get it. Also loved how the recap for the episode was basically every comedic episode, or nearly every single one of the comedic moments. Yeah, that was true, because it's just a mishmash of like random, like the ton of yellow fever for some reason. Stuff like this is why people were watching the show all these years later. It balances the dark and dreary with the funny and goofy. Though I am surprised that the writers never turned the brothers into actual animals. That is true, but I don't know how that would have worked. Jesus, Dean, for a guy who likes spending his life lying, you are shockingly bad at it. Absolutely, yes. Seriously, how the hell has Sam not figured anything out yet? Anyway, this episode is fine. Kinda gave me a lot of Men in Black vibes, oddly enough. Yeah, like when they're talking Spud. How no one else recognized the guy that dresses like an Australian cowboy was really dumb, but hey, otherwise it's another bland episode, which is really ended up being, though, the man's best friend in the last bit was pretty funny. Really, I found that interesting, because I thought this episode was really fun the whole way through. But I will give you a point about the Australian cowboy outfit.
Anyways, guys, thank you for your comments. Now we're moving on to episode 6. Heaven Can't Wait. Let me know what you guys think of that episode in the comments below, and I'll read those off in the next review. If you did, leave a like, and if you're interested in more, subscribe, and I will see you guys next week.